Welcome to Kids Recall. In today's video, we'll be going through the 2002 superhero movie Spider-Man. It's time to recall. Let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. It all begins with the story of a young teenager by the name of Peter Parker. As a teen, he's also a high school student who studies in his nearby school, namely the Midtown Secondary College of Science and Technology, situated in Queens, New York. From the onset, it's apparent that Peter has been living a rough life. As an orphan, he's adopted and lives with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben in their small and humble home. However, despite having unconditional love from his adoptive parents, he still does not really live the ideal life. At school, he's a loner, and the scenes depict just perfectly how he lives his loner life. He has a crush on a girl named Mary Jane that also happens to be his neighbor, but he has never possessed the courage to go up to her and start a conversation. At the same time, her boyfriend, Flash Thompson, is a vicious bully who loves picking on Parker and making his life at school difficult. Again, this is portrayed in the initial scenes of the movie. However, Mary Jane seems to have a soft spot for Peter, since she's one of the very few people who treat him with kindness, albeit in a very limited interaction. One other person who's particularly warm towards Peter is his best friend, Harry Osborn. However, despite their close friendship, Harry lives a rather lavish lifestyle, thanks to his billionaire father, which is a stark contrast to Parker. At the same time, Harry harbors a certain level of envy for Parker. This envy stems from the respect and closeness with which his father, Professor Norman Osborn, has for Peter Parker. Other than that, the starting scenes depict the overall miserable situation of Peter's life, with a more than necessary dose of average, coupled with the desire to rise and be greater than nobody that he thinks he is. All this comes to a gradual change one day when Peter and his class visit a science laboratory for a field trip at Columbia University. This laboratory specializes in genetics, and an explanation follows on how the lab has successfully managed to alter the DNA for multiple species of spiders. However, the lab boasts one of its most prized experiments in which the scientists were able to employ DNA manipulation to alter the genetics of one breed of spider. This made that breed transform into a new species altogether that was proudly called the super spiders. This information also suffices as the necessary background for the ensuing set of scenarios. As Peter suddenly calls out to Mary Jane, she falls into doing a series of different poses. Peter then proceeds to click a photograph of her to add to the school newspaper, of which he's an editor and photographer. As this happens, however, one of those super spiders manages to escape its enclosure and bites Peter on the hand as he continues photographing Mary Jane. As soon as he feels the sting of the bite, Peter begins to react and shakes the spider off his hand, after which the spider escapes to the underside of the cabinet. This causes Peter to gradually feel unwell, and he exhibits signs of discomfort and drowsiness. Once home, the headache takes a toll, and Peter feels increasingly uneasy, prompting him to go to bed. He tries to fall asleep. The venom of the spider's bite begins to mess with Peter's own DNA as soon as it's entered his blood. As this goes on, another story develops simultaneously. A top U.S. military official, General Slocum, visits Oscorp, the defense research company owned by Professor Norman Osborn. Whilst over, the general is given an update on an undergoing project that he has supposedly involved in procuring for the U.S. military. The formula is for a super soldier, seemingly possessing the capabilities of allowing soldiers to gain superhuman strength and fighting prowess. However, during the visit, the general is informed by one of Oscorp's top scientists that the formula may have dire consequences owing to immeasurable side effects. This brings the general to caution as he expresses his concern, indicating that he will possibly pull out the U.S. government's funding from Oscorp. This, of course, does not please Professor Norman Osborn, and he commits with the same scientist, Professor Strom, to alter the configuration of the super soldier formula. However, during their attempts to change the formula, Professor Norman inhales the formula to test it on himself, instantly changing his physical, emotional, and mental capabilities. Professor Norman loses his temper and kills Professor Strom in a fit, seeming to have almost become an entirely different personality. It appears as if the formula has made him lose control of his senses and human empathy, turning him into a psychopathic and ruthless killer. Professor Norman then escapes the scene, stealing 2 more inventions from the Oscorp inventory, namely a green steel plate battle suit and a jet glider. The story shifts towards Peter, who seems to have finally woken up unharmed from his poison. He feels better than ever before and gets up to continue his day, and as he removes his shirt and moves towards the cupboard to change his clothes, he passes a mirror and realizes that his skinny body has become much more muscular and lean. Surprised, he brushes away the confusion and speeds towards school. However, at school, another strange incident occurs. Peter realizes that he's capable of shooting substances from his wrists that are extremely similar to webs. And to top it all off, he realizes that he can sense danger and react to it appropriately. He manages to help Mary Jane as she's about to fall on the ground. Even more so, Peter realizes that he has super agility, since he catches all items of Mary Jane's lunch tray, which were launched upward as she began to fall in perfect order. Him holding Mary Jane like this angers her boyfriend, Flash, who challenges Peter to a fight before straight out attacking him. Strangely enough, Peter manages to beat Flash to the shock of everyone witnessing the ordeal. As nighttime arrives, Mary and Peter are seen casually talking and exchanging hints of likeness across the fence that separates their home. But just as the conversation develops, Flash arrives in a new car offering to take Mary Jane on a date. This instills jealousy and insecurity in Peter once again, as he realizes he will still need to compete with Flash financially in order to impress Mary Jane. Realizing he doesn't possess the means to buy a car, he begins to wonder. Peter then begins searching for opportunities to make money. He comes across a promotion in a newspaper that claims people can make money through participating in wrestling matches. A small-time wrestling organization makes the offer that anyone who can survive for more than 3 minutes in a fight against their champion will be able to earn $3,000 as a reward. This leads to Peter designing a suit for himself so that he can participate in the match without giving up his identity. He then informs his uncle and aunt that he's going to the library one night, and his uncle offers to drop him off there, explaining that this recent change in behavior has caused concern among the two of them and they worry for his well-being. At the same time, Uncle Ben informs Peter that with great power comes great responsibility, something that is referenced many times again in the Spider-Man series. Peter, however, driven by his desire for Mary Jane, acts out and tells his uncle not to pretend as if he was Peter's father. Peter then manages to participate in the match, though severely nervous. Luckily for him, the match does not only see him survive throughout, but he also wins by defeating the acclaimed champion in just 2 minutes. He goes to the cashier to collect his payment, but is only offered $100, causing him to get angry. As he stands in line, though, he realizes that an armed robber runs in with a gun and steals money from that cashier. Peter offers no help to the cashier in his distaste and allows the robber to escape. As the robber escapes, however, Peter hears a gunshot. He rushes outside to find that the robber has shot Uncle Ben and escaped in Uncle Ben's car. Peter pursues the thief and assaults him. The cops find the robber's body after he slips off the balcony. That evening, Peter is devastated because he knows that Uncle Ben would have not been there if he had intervened and prevented Dennis while he had the time to do so. The same evening, a dangerous individual flying a jet glider and donning the looted Oscorp exoskeleton strikes a weapons test at Oscorp's main rival, Quest Aerospace. General Slocum is slain, and their prototype is obliterated. Ben urges Peter to just use his newfound abilities for a better purpose, and Peter is motivated by his advice. He creates an outfit with a spiderweb design and web markings, and he swings around New York, stopping small-time muggings and thefts under the moniker The Amazing Spider-Man, which he steals from the speaker at the wrestling contest. Mr. Jonathan Jameson, the surly and cantankerous publisher, owner, and editor of the Daily Bugle, New York's top news organization, muck-raking tabloid, is not amused by this. When he discovers that Spider-Man makes news, he issues a request to photographers for more images for his front page. After finishing high school, Peter, Harry, and Mary Jane relocate to Manhattan. There are a lot of developments have taken place whereby Peter has already struggled with keeping a job, whilst Mary Jane is working as a waitress and hopes to achieve a career in the theater. All the while, Harry and Mary Jane have started dating, much to Peter's surprise and anger. Peter sees an ad for the Daily Bugle that is offering money for pictures of Spider-Man and takes it up. This is a rather fast-paced series of events wherein Peter never really realizes that something much bigger is brewing on the side. Everyone is changing, and Professor Norman is also moving towards a stable life since Oscorp regains more government contracts thanks to the destruction caused by the unnamed attacker to its competitors. However, he soon finds out that, owing to rising stock prices, all other members of the company's board of directors have decided to sell everything, and he's been ousted from his position inside the company despite being its founder and principal owner. This angers him, and gradually his personality splits, with one becoming entirely dominated by the evil tendencies injected through the super soldier formula. This personality manifests itself as the Green Goblin, and his most significant attack yet takes place as he takes out all treacherous members of Oscorp's board of directors during the company's annual Unity Day parade. Mary Jane is also present at the podium and is also placed at risk. Peter, who is there to take pictures of the events, reacts immediately and changes into Spider-Man, rescuing Mary Jane and causing the Green Goblin to retreat. And a couple of days later, Mary Jane finds herself in trouble again, surrounded by potential molesters in an alley. Luckily, Spider-Man rescues her, and the two kiss in the rain, which is one of the most iconic kisses in modern-day cinema. Realizing the prominence and potential for Spider-Man, the Green Goblin plans on a collaboration between the two and makes a series of attacks to fish for Spider-Man. These begin with an attack on the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man comes to the rescue as planned, and after the Green Goblin employs gas to knock Spider-Man unconscious, he takes him to a different location to make him an offer, explaining that even as a hero, he might never be loved by those he protects. However, Spider-Man refuses, prompting the Green Goblin to offer him time to think. To follow up on his offer, the Green Goblin puts a building on fire. As Spider-Man comes to save the stranded, the Green Goblin confronts him again and asks for a response to his offer. Spider-Man refuses, and the two erupt into a brawl. However, as they both sustain injuries, with Spider-Man being badly cut in the arm, they both retreat. Unknowingly, they both have to convene for a Thanksgiving dinner as Peter and Professor Norman. But at the dinner, Norman realizes that Peter is Spider-Man after noticing a cut on his arm. He leaves and insults everyone, particularly Mary Jane. This angers her, and she feels betrayed by Harry, who does not advocate for her. Realizing Spider-Man's weaknesses, the Green Goblin attacks Aunt May as she is rushed to the hospital. During her visit to Aunt May, Mary Jane explains that she fell in love with an unknown Spider-Man. Harry discovers this as he intrudes in on their discussion, and him and Mary Jane break up. This comes to the knowledge of Professor Norman, who realizes that Mary Jane is also one of Spider-Man's weaknesses. As the Green Goblin, he plans his next move. Therein, he abducts Mary Jane and also takes out a railway cart full of miners. This creates a tense situation, luring Spider-Man in once more. Realizing that he's already pressured due to Aunt May's ailment, however, as Spider-Man arrives, the Green Goblin tries to test him by releasing both Mary Jane and the trolley from a great height. This is an attempt to psychologically break Spider-Man. However, a barge is passing from beneath him, and Spider-Man uses that to his advantage. This saves him from the dilemma, as he becomes successful in saving both Mary Jane and the cart. This, however, makes Spider-Man vulnerable, and the Green Goblin plans to move in for a final blow. His attempt is intervened, though, by people on top of the bridge who view Spider-Man as their hero, despite the Green Goblin's claims of a contrary situation taking place. This distracts him, and Spider-Man regains his fighting stance. An intense fight ensues, where a grenade-like bomb employed by the Green Goblin burns most of Spider-Man's mask, causing several severe injuries in the process. Thus, the Green Goblin gains an upper hand in the fight, subduing Spider-Man. And he's about to make the finishing blow. He promises to make Mary Jane suffer. This is a direct call-out to Peter Parker's deeply engraved love for Mary Jane, giving him that adrenaline boost he needs. Thus, Spider-Man manages to turn the tables and give the Green Goblin a great beating. This changes the tide of battle, and Spider-Man almost wins the fight. However, as he's about to land that final blow, the Green Goblin unmasks himself, revealing that he's actually Professor Norman Osborn. This causes a shock to Spider-Man, as an appeal for pardon to extend by Norman towards Peter Parker. However, this is actually a play, as the Green Goblin plans on killing Spider-Man through deceit, using his glider. As the glider flies in from behind the blades protruding, Spider-Man senses danger and dodges it, causing it to drive straight into the Green Goblin. In his last breaths, however, Norman's good side takes over, and he urges Peter not to let Harry find out about his wrongdoings. Spider-Man then takes Norman's body back to his home, and Harry sees this, blaming Spider-Man for his father's death. Peter Parker soon attends Professor Norman's funeral, where Harry thanks Peter for his support as a friend and swears to avenge his father's death. Subsequently, Peter visits Uncle Ben's grave, where he finds Mary Jane. Mary Jane expresses her hidden love for Peter and kisses him. Despite the urge to confess his secrets, Peter tells Mary Jane that he only sees her as a friend with the underlying intention of protecting her. And as he walks away, the narration comes where Peter recognizes himself as Spider-Man. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.